presentation. Our presentation is about leisure well-being model, and we are studying the happiness theory.
My name is Ashlyn Braithwaite.
My name is Derek Halley.
And I am Laura Simmerman.
Okay, if you jump to the next slide, creator and date. Martin Seligman has a PhD. He was the founder of positive psychology. This happiness theory came out in 2003, even though he was studying it for many years beforehand. And I put a quote here about happiness theory, and that says, "Positive psychology is a scientific study of what makes life most worth living. It is a call for psychological science and practice to be as concerned with the strengths and weaknesses, as interested in building the best things in life as with healing pathology." And this was by Christopher Peterson, who's a PhD, and he wrote this in The Good Life.
Awesome. So the conceptual foundations of the happiness theory are the positive emotion. This is also commonly known as the pleasant life. This is what we feel like: warmth, comfort, pleasure. There are no shortcuts, or there are shortcuts to this feeling, and it's really like very, I want this now, and you get a new car and you feel happy. It's all about the in the moment feeling. The second one is engagement, which is also commonly known as the good life. This is where flow starts to happen. This is where you're on time with music. You lose consciousness of yourself because you're so engaged in the activity you're in, whether that's dancing or playing the guitar or running. It's also commonly known as like a runner's high, where you're just engaged and you just become so absorbed that you don't really feel at that moment, because the activity requires the use of both cognitive and emotional resources. So again, it's just you're having fun, but you're also very engaged. The last one, and this is the highest one, this is the meaningful life. This is where there are no shortcuts for you to take. It's when you're doing and participating in a project or group that is something bigger than just you. It's something that you find purpose in and something that you enjoy doing a lot. This is where like Boy Scouts of America comes into play, or gospel and church activities, or other things that you just find very powerful to you and very impactful on your life. Some of the three unique attributes of the happiness theory. Again, this is not all of them, but it's choices. This one is a big deal because we all have choices and we're all able to decide what we want to do on a day-to-day basis. But it also affects greatly on the fact that our choices could be made, but they may have consequences. This is a quote by Seligman, who said, "Happiness theory claims that the way we make choices is to estimate how much happiness or life satisfaction will ensue, and then we take the course that maximizes future happiness. Maximizing happiness is the final common path of individual choice." And I feel like that's really powerful because as we go about our life, we can choose to be happy, or we can choose to make decisions that may not bring us joy and happiness in that moment, but will in the future. This could be something like saving money instead of going out to the movies or going out to eat every single day. Just small things like that can make a huge difference on our lives in the future and the long run. The second one that we came up with was the control of inner experience. This one is more of just choosing who you want to be and what type of quality you want to live. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try, but he said that people who learn to control their inner experience will be able to determine the quality of their lives, which is as close as any of us can get to being happy. This is really awesome because, we can choose to be happy and we have that choice. Again, a lot of it is based off of different things, like we'll learn under number 3, that a lot of it comes under genetics, but we can choose no matter what we're going through, whether it's a trial or something really exciting, we can choose to be happy and we can choose to have gratitude in that moment. That's something really powerful. The third one is genetics. This one we found was very eye-opening because, we always hear that you can choose to be happy, but what we learned is a lot of it comes down to just who you are and who you were born to be. So we have a video on the next part, so go ahead and watch that.
I'm Dr. Mike Evans, and this is a short whiteboard on happiness. It's kind of a crazy topic, and the philosopher in me feels the more we try and make it a formula, the farther away we'll get. It's also likely we all have different meanings for happiness: pleasure, being engaged, life satisfaction. In medicine, we call it subjective well-being, with many domains: work, family, friends, spiritual, contentment, control. So I'll leave it to you to know what happiness means to you, but I do think the science of happiness comes with some useful lessons. First is, what predicts it? Well, the research points to a lot of factors, but 3 big picture players. First are your genes, your temperament or personality. Second are your life circumstances, things like wealth, where you live, health. Third are your life choices and behaviors. So of these 3 players, which is the most important? Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky, a University of California professor, has tried to answer this question. And I think she will say these are very approximate, but about half is predicted by your genes, 40% by your life choices, and only 10% by your life circumstances. So this is interesting. I do think there's a line in the sand. So for example, lifting people out of poverty would give a lasting bump in well-being. But for most, we think, if I just had that new car, higher salary, bigger house, new lover/partner, I would be so much happier. But the research says that sure, there is a boost with a new car, a new hockey stick, a new marriage. But after time, so with a car, this might be a few months, and the generally accepted time with a marriage is about 2 years. The new becomes the norm, and our happiness quotient drops back to what it was. The fancy name for this is hedonic adaptation. But perhaps the observation is that happiness doesn't come from getting something we don't have, but rather from recognizing and appreciating what we do have, or that happiness is best pursued by extracting the most possible from the present before turning one's attention to the future. Some would call this mindfulness or living in the moment. The second big lesson is about your life choices. The good news is they are mostly in our control and overlapping. So expressing gratitude, being more forgiving, meditation and mindfulness, exercise, investing in quality relationships, kindness, altruism, and doing things for others, compassion, having good flow, where you have a kind of spontaneous joy from being fully absorbed in a task, minimizing thinking traps that make us feel bad about ourselves. All of these can work with our factory settings to increase happiness levels. And don't underestimate their effects. Let's take one, having good relationships. The Grant and Glueck cohort trials have been following 2 groups of men, one advantage and one disadvantage, for over 75 years. And when they looked to see what most predicted being a healthy, happy octogenarian, well, it wasn't middle-aged cholesterol. It was middle-aged satisfying connectedness to family, friends, and community. And there are many nuances we are just figuring out. For instance, dosage. Dr. Lyubomirsky showed in a small trial about counting your blessings, where you list what I am grateful for, helped when it was done once a week, but not so much 3 times a week. So in the end, I think, sure, if you want to buy something cool, go for it. It might even give you a short-term bump in well-being. But maybe also consider investing in a few things that have a longer-term effect, a happiness portfolio, if you will. You may have a set point, but just like your risk of heart disease, you can alter this a lot by doing things differently. Hopefully this helps. I'm grateful that you listened and watched. See? I feel better already.
Okay, that was a great video about just the happiness theory. And as we discuss a little bit about the outcomes and this whole list that we have here that includes sense of purpose, physically healthy, positive outlook on life, a longer life, like we saw with the study done with elderly people and their connection with family and intimate relationships, the mental stability, a sense of accomplishment, and greater social group and intimate relationships. And I also wanted to go back to our handout almost, where we asked you guys to prepare with different things, such as make a list of things that make you happy and unhappy, and do random acts of kindness. These will help boost your happiness, and you can actually see these outcomes if you just try it. Now, the populations, who does this affect and who is this for? This is for everybody. It involves children, youth, young adults, adults, and geriatrics, which are like the elderly people. We can be good examples for our children with being happy, the way we talk about situations. In the youth, they're trying to find out who they are and to stay happy or find what makes them happy. And we can help them figure out the healthy ways of doing that through exercise, through being grateful, for doing also different service activities, which we can see, as Laura said, the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts.
Awesome. So we know with any topic that we have, there's always going to be strengths and there's always going to be weaknesses. And with the happiness theory, the strengths are amazing. The very first one that we found was that we can control more of our happiness than we ever thought was possible. Even when we hit rock bottom or we're just woeing, we know that we can always return back to our personal baseline of happiness, which is set around 50%. And that's in our lesson plan, our handout that we gave you. And it was also mentioned in the movie that our genetics, or our set point, is at 50, and that's just pretty much genetics. That's who we are as people. And so that's nice to know that any time that we hit this hard time, we can always come right back to 50, being still happy, having an understanding of happiness. And the other 40% was your thoughts, your actions, and then 10% is the outside circumstances, which is money, house, marriage. And so just remember that if you're feeling down, just get back up and keep going, because you can be happy. Another strength is by working on our strengths, clients and even ourselves, we become more capable in understanding ourselves or themselves. And so that's just by being happy, doing the things that we love. They understand themselves, we understand who we are, and it makes us go that much further in our life. Another one is happiness builds self-worth in the individual, as well as make them full of gratitude for the little things in life. So we're taught over and over again to stop and smell the roses, and that's what we need to do. Those things are what truly matter most in our life. And when we do that, we really do get that gratitude for the little things. Weaknesses. This is where it's kind of hard to cope with sometimes, because we're like, how come I can't always be happy? Why is life hard? And it's because happiness can never be forced onto anyone. It is completely a choice. And so the downfall to being a choice is that people can have the desire to be happy or decide against it. We see this all the time. If something happens, we're like, oh, dang it, should I be happy? I know I need to be happy, but it's so hard. And so that's one of the weaknesses of the happiness theory, is just it's hard. It's a choice. We have to make that choice to be happy. Another weakness is it's unpredictable, because no one can foresee the future. One moment we're living life to its fullest, and then something drastic can happen in a blink of an eye that could cripple us from having any fragment of happiness. That's part of life. It really is. And so with happiness, when we hit that rock bottom or something just pops out of nowhere, we just have to remember that we can keep going. It's going to be all right. Turn that weakness into a strength. Happiness is immeasurable because it is different for each person and can remain or diminish more quickly depending on the person. Each person, we know we're all different, and that's the great thing about life, is we can build each other up. But focusing on the weakness right here, it's just something that we can't measure. Each person will either accept, kind of going back up to that first weakness, is it's a choice. And so what works for one person may not work for another. But we just got to keep going. It'll be all right. And so this is our sources, and we hope you really like this presentation. If you have any other questions, visit these sources and look at the lesson plan and do the best that you can. Always be happy. Cool. Now let me end this.